This conversation between Srila Prabhupada and reporters that took place in Melbourne, Australia in June 29, 1974. It's entitled Out of Our Element. Srila Prabhupada is addressed by this report. There are three reporters, actually. So the first reporter, he says, "Your Divine Grace, often when people pursue what you term spiritual life, they seem to forget about pursuing the things of this world, making this world comfortable." Srila Prabhupada says, making this world comfortable? He says it like a question. And he says, "Do you understand this?" He's responding to the reporter like this. Oh, I'm sorry. I left out one sentence. He says, making this world comfortable? That will never be possible. Do you understand this? Let us say you take a fish out of the water and put him on the land. Now you may give the fish a lovely velvet cushion and everything nice, but will the fish be comfortable? Reporter, no. He'd be out of his element. Srila Prabhupada says. Similarly, we living entities are spirit soul. So being in this material body, in this material world, this means we are out of our element. But unfortunately, our system of education is so dull that the authorities do not know that we are not this body. We are spirit soul. They are presenting themselves as big, big philosophers and big statesmen and big social planners. Yet they are forgetting the real thing, that we are not this body, but spirit soul. Today, even the leader is accepting this material body as his real self. And he is thinking, these bodily comforts will make me happy. But that cannot be, because the body and its comforts are made of matter, and we are spirit soul. Consider the same example. If you take the fish from his natural environment, the water, and put him on the land, he'll never be happy. Similarly, as long as you continue to have this material body, you cannot enjoy real, eternal happiness. And you will have so many problems. The main problems are birth, death, old age, and disease. And these problems are due simply to having the material body. Therefore, an intelligent man should know that I am not this body. I am spirit soul. My natural field of activities is on the spiritual platform. If I can somehow return to the spiritual platform, then I will be happy. So the sum and substance of this Krishna consciousness movement is to educate people in how to be situated on the spiritual platform, how to be happy. Reporter number 2. Your Divine Grace, do you think that chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is the only way to achieve this liberation from matter? Is chanting the only way to be situated on the spiritual platform? Srila Prabhupada. Yes, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra means chanting the holy names of Krishna, the Supreme Lord, and Radha, or Mother Hara, the Lord's personified spiritual energy. So chanting Hare Krishna means you come into direct association with the Lord by taking shelter of his spiritual energy. Hare Krishna, O Lord, please engage me in your devotional service. O devotional spiritual energy of the Lord, please let me take shelter of you. Being situated on the spiritual platform means you take shelter of the Lord's spiritual energy. For instance, when you approach a heater, you're taking shelter of the heater's heating energy. Similarly, when you approach Krishna, you are taking shelter of his spiritual energy. Or take the example of the sun, the great fiery planet. When you approach the sun, you are taking shelter of the sun's heating and lighting energy. Is that not so? When you are in the sunshine, in one sense, you are in the sun. Of course, in another sense, you are not actually in the sun. But because the sun's fiery temperature is so high, that had you been actually in the sun, you would have been immediately blown up, burned into ashes. But still, when you take shelter of the sunshine, you take shelter of the sun. So Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is situated as the supreme fire. Whatever we are experiencing is a spark of his energy. And just as we can enter into the sun's all-pervasive fiery energy, even though the sun itself is 93 million miles away, so similarly, even though the Lord is very far away, we can take shelter of the Lord's all-pervasive spiritual energy simply by chanting his holy name. Because Krishna, being absolute, is not different from his name. Therefore, if you chant the Hare Krishna mantra without offense, then you directly associate with Krishna. This is liberation from matter. Spiritual liberation. Situation on the spiritual platform. Reporter number 2. In all the scriptures that I have read, it said that the disciple must remember God's name constantly. So you say that the Hare Krishna mantra contains God's name. How do we know this? Srila Prabhupada's answer. How do you know your name? Reporter number 2. My parents gave it to me. Srila Prabhupada. Yes, you relied on your mother and father, on parental authority. Similarly, you have to learn the Lord's name by relying on spiritual authority. Report says, from the scriptures, Srila Prabhupada. Yes. Reporter number 3. Srila Prabhupada. What about other religions like Christianity? And Srila Prabhupada cuts them off. There is no second religion. There is only one. That is the right idea. That is genuine God consciousness. Now, as soon as you designate Christian, Hindu, Muslim, that is upadi. It falls short of the genuine spiritual conception. Just as God is one person, so genuine religion is one thing. Designated religion, conceiving of our Christian God or our Hindu God, falls short. For example, now you are in a black coat. Tomorrow you may be in a white coat. So I could designate you as black Mr. Such and Such or white Mr. Such and Such. But there is no need, because you are not actually the black or white coat. That black or white coat is not you, but simply a circumstance. Similarly, due to our so-called sophisticated mind, we say Christian religion, Hindu religion, to describe some particular historical circumstance. We may use these designations. But religion is one thing. It means to glorify God's holy name and abide by his laws. That is the spiritual platform. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, just this simple conversation, there's so many important points that Srila Prabhupada has made. We, as being associated with this movement for so many years, we all understand what was Arjuna's dilemma. And most of us have read Bhagavad Gita, or at least heard of Arjuna's dilemma. Who can say what his dilemma was?
They're not fight against the other family members?
What did you say, Mom?
They're not fight against his family members?
Yes. He was facing that dilemma of having to fight and kill his family members. And then at one point in his conversation with Krishna, he actually accepts Krishna as his spiritual guide. And he actually, we could say he dovetails his consciousness to be in union with the divine consciousness. Prabhupada actually said, act on the direction of the supreme consciousness. So we get asked to do, you can imagine if we were asked to do what Arjuna was asked. How much of a dilemma, ethical dilemma, could we solve that one in our own mind? Could we really relate to having to kill our loved ones, our relatives? But Srila Prabhupada, as our spiritual guide, asks us some simple things to do. And we sometimes even struggle with that. Don't eat meat. At first, when we were so conditioned to eating the flesh of animals, we may have struggled with that. Now, philosophically, intellectually, we can understand that that's a nice thing to do, not to kill other animals, to eat food more in the mode of goodness. Yet Srila Prabhupada has told us, if Krishna wants meat, we feed him meat. So the principle that we have to really grasp is we have to understand what God wants. And who can tell us that? It's just like in this room, there are so many mothers. And they've had children. And they've had that experience. And the fathers also. Babies are dependent. They are so dependent that if you don't care for them, they'll die. So to be able to see the importance of dovetailing our desires, what we want, to make it the same as what the Supreme wants. That's the point. And the Guru, the guide, the spiritual guide, he helps us by training us, by telling us, do this, don't do this. So if we obey his instructions and follow them, then we can make spiritual advancement. Srila Prabhupada states simply here, too, at the end, religion is one thing. It means to glorify God's holy name and abide by his laws. So who knows God's laws? We're all born here, but it says actually we're born into ignorance. On our own, did we know God's laws as a child? It's referenced here other religions. I was brought up went to Catholic grammar school and high school. And my teachers, they knew certain things about God. But they didn't know Krishna. They knew certain things that they had been taught. And we were brought up in Catholicism emphasizing to some degree how we're sinners. Whereas philosophically, we can understand children, for the most part, are pretty innocent. So when you have little first grade and second graders, you're preparing them for their first communion, and you're indoctrinating into them that, hey, you're a sinner. It's not the best spiritual guide in my mind. And then they teach you a prayer. When you go to make your first confession, they teach you an act of contrition. Does anyone know that prayer?
Yes.
You know?
I'm first.
Yeah. Can you say the beginning of that prayer?
Oh my God, I'm heartily sorry for having offended thee.
There you go. That's it. Oh my God, I am heartily sorry for having, this is the way the prayer starts, I am heartily sorry for having offended thee. So, we all this little first and second, we go off, we make our first confession. The next week we come back, and our nuns, we're in the catechism class, and they're saying, we need to talk to you all. Father Rapolo is saying, you're not saying the prayer right. A number of the students misunderstood, and they were saying, oh my God, I am not heartily sorry. They was, oh my God, I am partly sorry. Wow. So, our spiritual guide, the nuns, had to correct us and teach us that the word is heartly. It has to be from your heart that you're confessing, that you're sincerely sorry for these offenses that you've made, and so on and so forth. So, it's actually a nice prayer, but that's one of the key words. It has to be from your heart. That you're heartily sorry for having offended God. So, if we continue to practice without sincerity, it's so important to be sincere in our practice, and that we have to really pray for the mercy of the divine, of Krishna. We have to realize how totally we're dependent on His mercy. Our free will gets us in a lot of trouble. As Arjuna was, and rightfully so, having this great dilemma because he didn't want to kill his relatives. And he was in so much stress and anxiety. But when he relinquished that and actually surrendered to Krishna and said, okay, whatever you will, I will do. This is like what Jesus gave us the Lord's Prayer. Our Lord, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Holy be thy name. Your name is holy. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. Well, Jesus taught that too. You do the Lord's will. Give up your desires. Dovetail your desires to the Lord's desire. So this consciousness of as Srila Prabhupada said, act under the direction of the Supreme Consciousness. So this is what we have to try to do. Srila Prabhupada also made the point that he was describing how in the material world you need to work. It's just a fact, you need to work. He said, to work in the material, most people work 8 hours. That's generally a work day in the material world. They work 8 hours. Some people may work less, some people more. But 8 hours a day is kind of common. Srila Prabhupada said, my practical experience, this is Srila Prabhupada talking. For spiritual realization, you have to work 24 hours. So this was Srila Prabhupada. Anyone who was in his association, or all of us who have learned about his personality, we can gather from what we've learned and know about him how he was on the spiritual platform. Simply traveling at how many here is over 60? How many of you have traveled around the world 14 times? Srila Prabhupada started that when he was 69. And wherever he went, he had no problem adjusting. He would rise at the same time. He would take his nap at the same time. He would do everything at the same time. And work all day, for the most part. He would take maybe 2 hours rest. And he would get up. He would translate through the night. So, and his disciples, who were young, how many here are in their 20s? Around, you're not in your 20s. They could not keep up with him. In fact, Srila Prabhupada would often chastise him. Why are you just simply sleeping? But it's because Prabhupada was on the spiritual platform. The time didn't affect him like it affects us. So he could do these things. We can't imitate, but we should emulate, we should follow and pray that one day we'll become like that. So if we try our best to abide by God's laws, first we have to understand who God is and understand what God's laws are. Like I was saying, Arjuna had a great dilemma, a great decision to make. We have to basically accept 4 regular principles. Practice to be under the tutelage of a spiritual guide. You have to chant God's holy name, give up eating things that we shouldn't be eating anyway, and give up other things that really aren't good for us, except the practice of devotional service. And it's important to have this consciousness of understanding the position of the spiritual guide. And Guru is one. We've all heard that, but what does that mean? Guru is one. And in extending the grace of divinity to others. That is the position of all the spiritual guides. If you want to be guru, you have to be willing to extend the grace of God to others. And by doing so, you're serving the Lord in the Lord's mission to reclaim all the fallen souls in this material world. We're like a fish out of water, and we're not going to be happy here. We can be happy only if we actually understand who we are and act, and who God is, and act in relation to that in a proper way. Otherwise, we'll continue speculating, we'll continue listening to our mind, who Krishna warns us himself in Bhagavad Gita can be your worst enemy. So if we want to continue on the path of bhakti, path of devotional service, we have to realize who we are and who God is. We're simple servants of the Supreme. Just like there's the story of I like the story that the little bird that laid the eggs of, she had laid eggs by the ocean. And the ocean came and took the eggs. So the little bird was so determined, it started to, beat by beat, take out the water from the ocean. And so, impossible task for this little bitty bird with a little bitty beak to achieve this. But that bird's determination caught the eye of the Lord's carrier, Garuda. The ocean wasn't paying any attention to this mother. It was ignoring this mother's, could see her sincere desire to get her children back, her unborn children. So the ocean ignoring it, then Garuda came. And as soon as Garuda came, the ocean immediately gave the bird her eggs back. So this sincerity of desire, this fixed and firm desire of this mother was so, Garuda couldn't do anything but help her. So we should realize that by our sincere desire, we will get all the help we need. And Krishna does this himself. He carries what we lack and preserves what we have. So all the help that we need is guaranteed. But we must have firm faith, we must be sincere. And practice, it's so important to practice. How we treat each other is so important. How we interact with each other, how we communicate with each other is so important. We should be very straightforward in how we deal with each other. We actually become unmotivated by revealing our motives. Don't hide anything. So these things, these principles, we've been given wonderful gifts, and now we simply have to practice them sincerely and help each other on this path and realize that the goal that we're trying to achieve is the real goal of life. All these other goals that we see the materialists trying to achieve, even if they achieve them, what is the use? Srila Prabhu would say, what's the use? The big bank balance, big homes, big skyscrapers. End of life, they're gone. All that is just, it's gone. So sometimes we may become a little bit bewildered or discouraged or whatever, that we don't see hundreds of thousands of people flocking here or whatever. But that's not, don't be bewildered by that. There's actually a lot more living entities in the spiritual world than there are in its entire material world. This material world is a very small aspect of God's creation, actually. So, we're not in the minority, we're actually in the majority. But sometimes the material energy bewilders us and we think we're in the minority. But Krishna is so kind. The more we do our best to please Him, the more He will give us facility to remain fixed in His service. And at this time, though, I'd like to stop and see if there are other realizations. Yes?
In the first part of what you read from Srila Prabhupada, it said about, I might misquote it because it was a while ago, something about chanting without making offenses. How would you make an offense when you chant?
Okay, I don't remember reading that, but there are, Srila Prabhupada says, the 10 offenses to the holy name. Have you been told those? Okay. But, Mother, you want to say those 10?
You want me to?
Yes, please.
No?
Yes. 10 offenses to the holy
Yeah,
name.
it's recite in the morning every day, but you don't get to go to the morning program because you got a kid. But it's not right
She's
after.
uncooperative. That's why I really...
Right after Mangalarti, it's let's see, to asking the devotees who dedicate their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. I'm not a practice giver.
No, 2 is the blaspheme, the devotees like going Brahma and Shiva.
Wait, one is to blaspheme the devotees, right?
3 is to disobey the orders.
Disobey the orders of the spiritual master. And 4 is to consider. No. I'm sorry, I'm not practicing. I'm on a spot.
That's 5.
That's it.
Can you follow?
There are 10 offenses to the holy name. And one offense. Okay. Elsie, you want to say them?
Not the other thing.
Say them all.
You have to say them, whoever's saying them, just say them slow. So that
Yes. Who have dedicated their lives to the propagation of the holy name. To
names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal or independent rulings over Vishnu. 3 to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4 to blaspheme as spiritual religion that worship. 5 to consider what.
Where's the chanting? Just imagination. 6 to render one's own interpretation of the holy name of the Lord.
7 to convince of duties of the shame pertaining to the holy name of the Lord. 8 to say chant for Krishna's walk the squishes with perfect love babies offered in medicines with practices from Uganda. 9 to instruct the face person by the first opponent Lord. 10 to not have complicating claims and imitate so to that from even after understanding something happening on this matter. This also affects being done to volunteers. Every word claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these sentences in order to quickly achieve desired success. Krishna Prema. Go of that. Now is on this propagation success.
So, there are 10 offenses, of course. Whatever time you have to chant, try to chant it and chant the Lord's holy name where you at least are attentive, very attentive to the Lord's holy name. And Prabhupada gave a simple instruction to help us. Out the mouth, in the ear. So just here, out the mouth, in the ear. And just, it's difficult if, naturally, when you're taking care of patients, you know, and you have so many other things, but if you do have some free time, alone time, and you're able to chant, just try to really hear.
Which
So what's going on?
goes along with what I've heard about the ISKCON rule is that you're not supposed to chant while someone's giving class.
That I've heard that too. In
Which
fact,
makes sense.
yeah, yes. In fact, I've seen Ridayananda chastise. Any other realization, questions? Yes.
It was interesting when, the very beginning, when Krishna was telling Arjuna that you have to kill these people and they're their family members, it suddenly dawned on me that when I was introduced to Krishna consciousness, I lost friends.
Mm.
I lost the affection of my parents.
Mm.
It's not like I didn't lose things, and I came from a fairly comfortable home, but I couldn't go back, you know, because I was really you know, sometimes I part of me would be hanging back, but the feet would be going to the temple. You know? So it's not like I know I'm more of a millstone. I'm not much help, not having been initiated, and there are reasons for that. But it's not like I didn't lose some things by. You know.
Just by associating
Yes,
with
yes.
Yeah.
And being the butt at cocktail parties or something. You
Uh-huh.
know? Anyway, I don't know, that hit me.
Yeah.
The similarity of killing your kinsmen.
Yeah.
You know, people I babysat for suddenly were terrified when they saw me at the door.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, you know, something for the kids, and so.
And it's like grieving a loss. It's like grieving a loss.
Well, it was, yeah, it was a real. I thought the whole thing made sense. You know, I bring people to the temple to watch a video of Prabhupada and think, isn't it just completely logical? And then you look at me like, you know, get me out of here. So,
Thank you, Shane. Any other comments, questions? Mother, no, right?
I want to share something what I heard this week in relation to what you just said, making this place a very comfortable place to stay. I did not know the horrified fire which took place in California until my dear friend right here, he told me, because his brother is a firefighter over there, trying to rescue all these people. They thought, you know, they were very smart and very rich people. These are not poor people. They go and buy land inside the jungle, and I cannot comprehend that. He can tell you more, because it's a law. The law there in California allows you to buy land inside the jungle. So these rich people go get this big bungalows inside the jungle, and then when this fire came, they have no help. They couldn't get out. Some of them were charred in the car. Some were trying to get out. I mean, he can tell you more. It was like, you try to make this place so comfortable. If only they knew they live near a temple of devotees or something, somebody will help. But it's not by a few people, they're by hundreds who died like this, you know, thinking that they're going to make a comfortable place that they don't have to see anybody, you know, by themselves. They were thinking they were going to conquer some kind of a thing, I don't know what, but it's very sad to see this.
Yeah.
Hear this. Untimely death like that, you know, fire cannot get out.
Thank you. Danger every step in this material. We have to always remember, it's like part of the theme of this class is trying to remind us all how to rely on the spiritual authority, individuals like Srila Prabhupada. Because we have to realize how powerful our minds are. And we always have a right to our own opinion. But it doesn't mean that our own opinion is always right. So we really have to train the mind with our intellect to defer to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And if we do that, we will safeguard our consciousness. Our consciousness, our Krishna consciousness, is our most prized possession. And we're conscious of so many things. And it's because the soul's in the body, that these bodies are conscious, that it's like I can see a stika, but I can't see his mind. I don't know if he has some ailments in his body. He knows, but I don't. So what I can see, I'm very limited. And yet we want to rely simply on these senses to make judgments, which these senses are imperfect. So the true spiritual guides, they teach us really how to make the right decisions, how to properly dovetail our intellect, how to properly dovetail our desires to become one with the divine consciousness, these things that we're asked to sacrifice or to dovetail, whether it be the foods we eat or staying away from certain activities. They're actually for our benefit. But our mind will tell us, nah, it's all right. You don't need to listen to that. So the spiritual master, he's there to guide us and to protect us, to protect our consciousness, to protect our Krishna consciousness, our God consciousness, which is our true awareness, which is our true, we're Satchidananda. And we'll never realize that we're that if we divert our energy to the lower modes of material nature. Anyway, it's 1:30 now. Well, do you have anything else? Any other announcements? Or?
Ready to go.
Okay, there you go. It's just like...
I wasn't doing that. I just was getting numb. That's why I got...
Oh!
I'm sorry.
But there's...
It's not that I wanted the class to end.
Oh, thank you. But we can be fooled so easily. It's just like right now, there's, what's the word, not astrologer, but sometimes people who make predictions, and sometimes...
Foreteller?
Yeah, something like that. Say I were to say right now, okay, count the people in this room. And then we'll come up with a number. And I say, listen, I guarantee you, when we go outside, there's going to be more people. I guarantee it. Now, all of us know that. We all know it because we live here. And we know there's more people at Prasadam than there are in class. So we know that. It's not bewildering to any of us. I'm not making any, great predictions. But for someone who's in ignorance, who doesn't know that, who may be here for the first time, go, wow, that guy was right. But it's not, it's something that's common sense to us. But that's what, another thing Srila Prabhupada said, common sense isn't so common nowadays. But Srila Prabhupada taught us also that Krishna consciousness is common sense. And when you think about it, the more we regain our common sense, we're regaining our original constitution, who we really are. That's what we're coming. Yes?
What's amazing, too, is that he wanted people to ask questions. He wasn't afraid of questions
Hmm.
You know, he wanted his devotees to, you
Oh,
know,
yes.
challenge him, and
Yes.
Compared to other religious leaders.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a very
They
good point.
don't like the question so much.
No, they want you to keep your eyes focused,
Yes.
put the blinders on, and don't
Yeah.
ask any questions.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Prabhupada welcomed all questions and doubts. Any other realizations? Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.